So a man and a mouse are walking toward each other in a narrow corridor, and when they meet, the mouse looks up at the man and says, you know, I'm scared of you, and I know I should be running the other way, but there's a cat back there, and I'm going to take my chances with you. I hope you're not the kind of guy who squishes little mice. And the man looks down at the mouse and said, hello, little mouse. I wonder why you're not afraid of me. And the mouse says, okay, fine, you don't have to talk to me. I'm just a mouse, but I'm going to scooch past you, and I hope you're a nice guy. So he scooches past the man, and as he continues on his way, the man thinks to himself, well, that was an intriguing encounter. I wonder what a mouse would say if a mouse could talk. The idea is that these two are literally trying to communicate on different wavelengths. That this tone, a mouse can't hear that tone. It's below the hearing range of a mouse. And little mice are out there every night, and they're singing like an eligible bachelor over here, feeling kind of frisky, and anybody listening? And we can't hear them. It's too high for us to hear. Not surprisingly, cats can hear that. So this brings me to the work that I do, and that is that I create music for animals. Now I know it sounds silly, music for animals. That it's a little bit really? What? It's a trick. And it's supposed to, in a way, sound silly. It's very natural. We categorize things. It's how we make sense of our world. If I point to a door and I say, that's a cup. You say, no, I know what a cup is. A cup is round. You put stuff in it. That's not a cup. That's silly. And everybody knows what music is. And animals are not included. But I'm hoping that by the end of the talk, at least I can move you a little toward the way I think of things, which is, what's really silly is the idea that music could only be for one species. So how I got started on this was I was investigating music for humans and trying to figure out how it is that music affects our emotions. And I took an approach that hadn't been tried before. I took music apart, as it were, into indivisible elements, and I asked the question of each element, why would that affect the emotions of our hunting and foraging ancestors? Or why would we relate to that sound? And after a few years of investigation, I felt I had plausible answers to these 26 or so elements of music. And with that, felt that I had something of a theory, and the sounds tended to fall in one of two categories for the most part. One were the sounds that we heard as our brains were developing, and the other were vocalizations and part of our language. So with this theory, I thought one test of the theory is that if I was right about this, I should be able to create music for some other species. Is that I could take this recipe, as it were, for how music is made, and take the ingredients that are now for humans and replace them with the ingredients of whatever species I was writing for. And the field was wide open because of the very many studies that have been done of the effect of music on animals. Basically all came up dry, is that animals basically don't give a damn about our music. And it seems to me, why should they? It's kind of like putting a dolphin behind the wheel of a luxury car, see if it likes the ergonomic design. Music was designed by humans, for humans, based on us and everything about us. So the study that I would try to pose, what I proposed is to do some other primate. This is a cotton-top tamarin monkey. And there had just been a study done at Harvard about the effect of music on this very species. And they slightly preferred Mozart over German techno music, as I think is completely understandable, but they preferred silence to either one. So what I did with this was I thought I would approach the most famous scientist, primatologist that I could find, and basically, as I was refused, I would work my way down to at least the most respectable scientist who's willing to try the study. As it happens, I didn't get past that first name. His name is Charles Snowden. He's an eminent primatologist at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. And he was interested in the ideas, and we communicated. And what he would send me was were these calls, and there was a library of these calls of this tamarin monkey. And each call had its own kind of charming name. Like the chevron chatter was a call that they would use if they found some food. There was the ascending multi-whistle, which was a mother-to-infant call. And I would listen to these calls, and then I would slow them down 8 times because they're very high and very fast. And I slowed them down, and I took a musical dictation of these calls. So I kind of printed out sheet music of the calls. Then he sent me these 2 newly discovered calls. One is called the SL trill, and the other the SL multi. And so I thought these were in the same kind of category as he sent them, and I did what I usually do. I listened to them and then slowed them down. And this is what the SL trill sounds like. First you'll hear the real call, and then the call slowed down 8 times. That's the call. G, F, E flat, D, C. It's an E flat major scale. I had to sit down when I heard that, because of course we thought we invented E flat major. And then this is the SL multi. Again, you'll hear it real time and slow down. Sounds like a horror show. Well, I wrote back to Dr. Snowden somewhat reluctantly because he hadn't agreed to do a study. And I was saying, I hate to tell you your business, but I don't think these belong in the same category. The first sounds to me like an in-group vocalization. It's consonant intervals and a regular normal tone of voice and regular rhythms. And the other, I think, sounds like a threat. It's irregular rhythms and dissonant intervals and a very harsh tone of voice. And that's when he agreed to do the study because it turned out I was right. The first was an all-clear call. The second was a response to a perceived threat. Apparently the SL is just the initials of the person who discovered the calls. Wasn't intended to be in the same category at all. And I think he rather liked the idea that based on a musical analysis, I was able to tell pretty much what they were talking about. So we did the study, and as the study was going on, I remember calling him and he's like, how's it going? So I'm very interested, and he said, well, I don't know, and I wouldn't tell you even if I did, because the people who are conducting the study are naive to the results we expect to find. It has to be that way, so basically, sorry, Bob, you're going to have to wait. So when the data did come in, however, it was successful. The music that I'd written to get them riled up, got them riled up, and the music I'd written to calm them down, and for the most part, the human music, as usual, as a control, they just didn't pay any attention, except for one song, and I'll tell you about that in a second. So we got a good deal of press out of it. This picture is from the New York Times piece on music for monkeys that they eventually named the #1 idea of the year of 2009. And so this is the exception. There was one work of human music that did have an effect on the monkey. This is by the heavy metal band Tool. They were significantly calmed by that music. And so the reason for that, why that would be the only thing that affected them and affected them in that way, has to do with where music comes from. And I'll quickly run down those features of the womb that make it possible for this to be the foundation of music. For one thing, you were listening for 3 to 4 months before you were born. The sense of hearing comes in very early in the gestation. And those sounds, of course, are constant. That heartbeat and respiration were relentless and loud. 25 decibels above the background noise is hundreds of times louder. And the 75 decibel maternal voice, the sound of your mother, as it's heard, that's as loud as a bus that passes near you. Now, basic principles of neurological development demonstrate that information that is coming in as the brain is being formed will tend to remain. So it's like baking a spice into the cake as your brain is forming there in the womb. All the information that's coming in pretty much sticks. And that the structures responsible, this is the key, that those structures responsible for our emotions are almost completely formed at birth in the human being. Like the eyeballs and deep brain structures, they're basically done. A lot of growing in upper cortical areas, as we know, but basically these emotional centers, they're fully cooked. So if I was right about this, it should be possible to draw a line between the music of all cultures and the sounds of the womb. So, in other words, you can tease out, of course, there are a lot of differences between the musics of different cultures. You can find those elements of music that they all have in common, and we should be able to find those sounds represented in the womb. We should also be able to listen to the sounds of the womb and find those in the music of all cultures. And sure enough, they match up. In the heartbeat, for example, we have pulse. We also have meter. Meter is the combination of strong, and weak beats. Some combination of strong and weak beats is found in music of all cultures, and the combination of the heartbeat plus breathing creates just those kinds of strong and weak beats, and it's continuous. That basically, with very few exceptions in music of all cultures, it just keeps going. And none of these things have anything to do with language. Two aspects that do have to do with language are present in the music of all cultures, but the language as it would be heard by the fetus. And one of them is that we have discrete pitches. There's no music of any culture that sounds like, oh. Music has notes. Pitches here, these are pitches. These are pitches. Inside, you can't hear the consonants very well, but you hear the vowels. These are pitches, which sound like individual notes. And the pitch range of the instruments that play melodies in music of all cultures, basically it's in this range. The adult female voice. You don't find many melodies down here, because guys don't have wombs. And so, another one featured while I have my cello out, say, the quality of sound is also important. I use only acoustic instruments and don't use actual animal sounds in the music because the quality is so important. Eugene Morton discovered at the Smithsonian that high, pure sounds like, oh, baby, you're so cute, oh, so baby. If high, pure sounds like this, tend to be affectionate, and the low, harsh sounds, I'm going to get you, that they're threats. Now, of course, what's high to us is low to a cotton-top tenor and monkey that vocalizes in that range, and what's high to a tenor and monkey will be low to a bat. So you have to get it right for the species, as well as get the quality of sound right. So this womb origin basically explains why it is that the cotton-top tenor and monkey was called by speed metal, because, as it turns out, the resting heart rate of the adult female tenor and monkey is about 200 to 220 beats per minute, and that's about the same rate as this speed metal. So basically, our speed metal is their lullaby. So that works for monkeys because monkeys' brain development happens inside the womb, much like humans, but the cat's brain is only 1/8 the size at birth of what it will be at 10 weeks. And so the sound of the pulse won't matter because the brain development happened outside the womb. So what I did figure is that a reward-related sound that all cats will have heard as their brains were developing would be the kind of sound of suckling for milk. And so basically in the recipe ingredient business, I've taken the pulse and replaced it with a kind of a sound. As you may have guessed, we had a second study of music for cats. And we also did this, it was done at the University of Wisconsin, Madison, and I'm very happy to say that the data were even stronger than they had been for the monkeys. And cats prefer their own music. And there's an aspect of this that, that I'm most happy with, that I've discovered that you can blend music, human music, and cat music if you use the right elements at the same time. They don't interfere with one another, and they don't subtract from one another. And I call it a shared air. It's the first track of the Music for Cats album, and it sounds like this. That melody in the low register. Low register, basically, cats don't care much about that. You can hear a reflection of that melody in the kitten register. And this aspect of this music is what pleases me the most, because we think of music as the universal language. I love the idea that it can be made even more universal, extending to other species. And music, love songs. Most songs are love songs. And people love their animals. And you can have a music that expresses this connection. And so I'll leave you with the advice of M. Forster, only connect. That is the whole of my sermon. By the way, I've begun a collaboration with Alexandra Horowitz at the Dog Cognition Center at Columbia University. Dogs are next.